Today is Tuesday, Parashat Shemot. In the Parashah of this week, Paro, the king of Egypt, has a decree that every newborn child should be thrown into the river. Every boy that was born was to be put in the river and drowned. The midwives were Yocheved and Miriam. And Yocheved and Miriam, of course, did not listen to that decree of Paro. They had a higher authority to answer to, which is Hashem. And every child that was born, actually, they didn't throw in the river. They actually helped the mothers to deliver and sustain both mother and child. And the pasuk says, "Vahi ki yareu amyaledot et Elohim, vaya'as lahem batim," which means that because the midwives were God-fearing, because they feared God, they answered to the higher authority, which is God, rather than the king of Egypt, Paro. And because of that, vaya'as lahem batim, he made for them houses. So Rashi explains, we're not talking about material houses. He didn't make, Hashem didn't, they didn't have like such palaces or big houses. No, it talks about a different type of house. Rashi explains, Batei keuna ulviya umalchut shekeruyim batim. They had the merit that from them came out descendants that were both Kohen and Levi, which means the spiritual leadership of Am Yisrael. They were ones who worked in Bet HaMikdash, in the temple, and also Malchut, which is kingship. So they had houses, a dynasty of kings, and a dynasty of priests in Bet HaMikdash. Because from Yocheved came out the Kohanim and the Leviim, and from Miriam came out David HaMelech, the King David, and his descendants, the Davidic dynasty. So here we see that the houses, the true houses to speak about, is not physical, material houses, but rather the descendants and them being leaders of Am Yisrael. So a mother being God-fearing, being a person that follows the mitzvot of Hashem, has a much greater potential to have successful descendants in the way of Torah, of mitzvot, of civic and spiritual leadership, just like Yocheved and Miriam merited these houses of spiritual and civic leadership through kingship of David HaMelech and his descendants, and the Kohanim and the Levim. So that's one of the lessons from the Parashah of this week, that the mothers being God-fearing can have a major impact on the success and the merit even of their children generations later. There is another pasuk here that bears a little bit of an explanation. The pasuk says, "Vayehi bayamim ahem vayigdal Moshe vayetzel echa vayar besivlotam." And it happened those days that Moshe grew up and he went out to see his brothers and the rest of the Jewish people, and he observed sivlotam, their burdens. But the pasuk just before says, "Vayigdal hayeled," the child grew up, meaning about Moshe Rabbeinu. So two psukim, one after the other, speaking about Vayigdal, that Moshe grew up. So Hachamim explained that the first one he grew up in terms of age. He grew up, and this is when the mother says, his mother that was nursing him brought him to Paro. The second Vayigdal has to do with a different type of growing up, to feel the responsibility for his brethren and to go out and see their suffering. And here the pasuk also indicates to us what is the greatness of a person, is how much he cares for others, for his community, for his society. In other words, not just what's in there for me, what can I do for myself, but rather what can I do for others. And to have the care and concern for his people was a sign that he grew up. So the greatness and the growing up is when you can, and if you see a child when he's born, he's thinking about being cared for, being nursed, being changed, but the older a person gets, the more he has the ability to care for others. And that pasuk indicates, Vayigdal, and he grew up. He became greater, because now, through the fact that he's caring for others, that's a sign of growing up and being a greater person. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.